Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we'll talk about rating, everything you ever wanted to know but were afraid to ask. My name is Carol Ashburn. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Prophesy. I'd like to welcome you to Webinar Wednesday. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Pasternak, our National Sales Manager, and he'll be telling us all about rating today. Kevin?
And once again, welcome to Webinar Wednesday, rating everything you wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask. Right now I've got the lines open so that you could go ahead and ask questions. There's one person on the line. It sounds like there's a lot of noise in the background. I don't know if they have a phone. If they can mute that, that would be wonderful. If it stays like it is now, I'll just go ahead and leave it open. And once again, as I go through the presentation today, if you ask a question, certainly go right ahead. Just a little bit of a corporate overview on Prophesy. We've been in business now for over 23 years. I'm located here at our corporate headquarters in Bloomfield, Connecticut. We have 15,000 customers using various solutions from our motion routing, fuel tax, driver safety management, all of our standalone products and used by private fleets, fire carriers, 3PLs, distributors. We have 1,200 customers like yourselves that are using our dispatch solution. As you probably know by now, we are a division of Excelos Corporation, and Excelos is a global supply chain management company servicing small to medium-sized companies. Corporate Excelos is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We've got divisions located in the GTA, the Greater Toronto area, Plymouth, Michigan, and Bloomfield, Connecticut, and as of last week, Columbus, Ohio. We've got over 200 what we consider enterprise customers using all of our solutions. Solutions include the Prophesy customers. We've got customers using the Freight solution, which is an LTL solution, Radio Beacon, which is a WMS product, specified warehouse management software product. Map Data is a data collection product that integrates closely with the Microsoft Dynamics accounting program and brings data right into that database. Dell4, which is a 3PL warehouse product designed for public warehouses, specifically really strong in the cold storage space. And vSync. vSync was just acquired by Excelos as of the first of the year. They're in Columbus, Ohio. vSync is an EDI provider, EDI translation software. They operate a van. They also have seamless integration to the Microsoft Dynamics product line, and I'm sure you'll hear more about them in the months to come. You can read about all of the divisions within Excelos at www.excelos.com. We have customers in over 17 countries throughout the globe, almost 200 employees, including development in Russia and India. We need to grow, as obviously organically and through continued acquisition, as I said, with vSync just in the first part of the year. To be stable and we hope still small enough to be personal and to take care of you, our partners, and we're certainly backed by solid financial partners. There's a use that when leaders of Excelos formed the company 3.5 years ago, they put down, and each office has them right on the wall in the office, and customer commitment, employees' integrity, humility, innovation, citizenship, and I'm not going to each one of these in detail, but the key here is that these are passed down from the top, and each employee of within Excelos is expected not only to pass those on internally, but certainly externally as well. If there's anything that we can do for you at any time, if you think someone's doing what they should be doing, please let us know. In today's presentation on rating and Prophesy Dispatch, I sat down and met with Miriam Vell, our manager of training, and the thing that came out of that conversation with Miriam was that when a customer goes through training, and some of you may or may not have experienced this, there certainly is some time spent on setting up rate schedules and learning about the capabilities of the rating within the program. Got out of that conversation with Miriam. As customers are given the responsibility to go back and finish setting up that automated rating or the rating within the program, it doesn't happen. When they go back and visit with companies after they've gone live, whether it be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, a year, they find that those rate schedules are right where they left them, and a lot of customers are not taking advantage of the automated rating capability. And that's what I want to talk about today is going to be to set up basic rate schedules and the different functionality that exists within the rating. and how to actually save you time. So let's take a look at rating, everything you wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask. I'm going to dispatch program. And the thing I'm going to say about rating is there's basically two types of, or rates are basically used for two things. One, pay drivers, carriers, salespeople, and the second, they're used to bill your customers. Let's take a look at a basic rate schedule. I'm going to go through some of the components of that rate schedule to make sure that you understand those. I'm going to go to Maintain, Rating. I'm going to go to Schedules, and I'm going to a rate schedule. I'm going to Albany DIST rate schedule. And go through a couple of key areas of this rate schedule, go through some of the fields and explain them. If there are any questions, I would certainly encourage you to go ahead and you can ask throughout the presentation today. If you'd like to hold them till the end, there will be a Q&A session at the end. And if I want to address something later on, I may ask you to hold that question. But each rate schedule has what we call a header, the top portion of the screen. It's got a rate ID. Each rate schedule you can associate whether you want rating miles or driving miles. As you all know, the dispatch software is fully integrated to the Prophesy mileage and routing system. We also offer integration of third-party mileage and routing systems like PC Mile or Rand McNally. So whatever mileage system you want, whatever mileage basis you want the rate schedule to use, make sure that you select that. You have a rate schedule for round trip. Certainly, most schedules that I see in customer systems are one way, but if you want to set up a round trip rate schedule, that can certainly be done as well. You can use the schedule. You can set it up for billing, or you can set it up for paying purposes, or you can set it up for either. Most people set up a rate schedule for either billing or payroll. You can tell them how many free stops are included in the rate schedule, such as you've got a load that has a pickup and it has a drop. It's a full truck, one pick, one drop. You would want to, and you don't charge for a stop charge because it's just a pick and a drop. Well, then you would say one free stop for that rate schedule. If we were using this rate schedule to book a load that had a pick, a drop, and a drop, well, that would add one stop charge as defined in the header or defined in the detail lines. You can set variable stop charges. Variable stop charges can be set up within the rate schedule, or they can be set up in the detail lines. If you are a carrier that has a lot of stops and you have a variable rate schedule, variable charge stops, say from 0 to 3 stops, charging $50 per stop. But when you do 4 to 6 stops, that charge goes up to $75 per stop. And this will add those charges in automatically. You can apply or define charges that take place on every load you do, or will take place if something happens, such as if there's a stop, add $50 unless there's an override in a detail line. We'll talk about that in a second. I have a fixed charge in this rate schedule, and a lot of people don't use this functionality, but it's important to point out. I know we have some customers that are in the business that every load gets scaled, and for every load that gets scaled, they charge their customers, each one of them, a scale fee. So with the rate schedule, I've defined that every time I book a load using this rate schedule, it's going to add a $25 scale fee to the load. Set up what are historical surcharges. Now, in the rate schedule I'm showing you here, the surcharges really are all defined as fuel surcharges. But historical surcharges could be anything. I have customers, and I've seen customer databases where they have insurance surcharge. I've seen surcharges where there's a surcharge on the line haul, and those of you that are in the refrigerated hauling business, you may have a separate fuel surcharge for the reefer. The key in setting up these surcharges is you can put an effective date. In other words, this particular surcharge went in effect yesterday, the 12th. It's through the 18th, through next week. It's based date. It could also be based on the call date, the drop date, or the current date. It's 35%. So 5% fuel surcharge based on watching the customer. I could set up a fuel surcharge or any of these surcharges on a per mile basis, a unit's weight per hundredweight tons, rate, basically any way that I can rate within the system. Now, the area that we want to talk about regarding this specific rate schedule, and one of the most important areas, is the detail in the lower left-hand corner. In your scroll bar here, you're not limited just to these 5 or 6 detail lines, but you can put an infinite number of detail lines within a rate schedule. The details are made up of what we call origins and destinations. I think, as most of you know, origins and destinations are made up of what we call areas. Let's take an area. I'm just going to click on the origin, and it's going to bring me to the New York area. This area consists of a city and state, and the state in this case is simply Albany, New York. What areas can you set up? You can set specific location IDs under maintain locations, locations in the system. Those can be areas. 5-digit zip codes, the 5-digit zip ranges, cities and states. 3 zips, 3-digit zip ranges, states, Canadian postal codes or Canadian postal code range. The thing that's important, as I click on drop down in areas, there's a hierarchy that's in place here. So you set up an area and it contains multiples. You can have multiple location IDs, multiple zips, zip code ranges, etc. You can get extremely complex with these areas. It's going to use the hierarchy of location ID first, then zip, 5-digit zip, then the zip code range, then the city state. While we're here, let's take a look at one more area. Let's go to actually our all states. You can see an area that consists of multiple states. It's all the states in the continental United States. Once again, area can be very specific, a specific location ID, to broad as the entire United States. See within this detail line here is there are several different types of rates that are defined with this one rate schedule. You can Albany, New York to Bloomfield, Connecticut. There's a per mile rate of $5. You can see this specific detail line. There's a stop charge of $50. And next detail line, and the blue diamond on the left side is telling me that that line is in focus. From New York to Chicago, there's a flat rate in effect for this rate schedule. The charge is $1,990. A stop charge is $50. Some are asking, why is there this mileage reference on a flat rate? Well, you charge your customer on a per mile basis for the fuel surcharge. And maybe Prophesy computes the fuel surcharge, the amount of miles from Albany, New York to Chicago at 875 miles. But you and your customer have agreed that the fuel surcharge should be based on 850 miles. You can just put that 850 in there, and those are the miles that would be used for the fuel surcharge or for any surcharge that's using mileage. You can also set up per hundredweight rates. There's one within this rate schedule. You can see the system is using standard per hundredweight breaks, less than 5, 10, 20, 30, 35, 37.5, and 40. Also notice on the right-hand side, I haven't pointed out earlier, there are variable stop charges that are on the D level, just like there were in the header. Now, if you set them up on the detail, they'll override what's in the header. You can also set up revenue type aliases and use a revenue type alias. Well, let's say we're setting up a rate schedule and it was based on a per unit or per piece. Instead of the invoice saying at unit per piece cost, maybe moving widgets, and you pay per widget. Well, if you add out units, just under, you come under your pieces, you would select whatever it is, if it's widgets, and then widgets would show up not only on the booking screen, but also on the invoice itself. One that I did skip over up here in the header is the base rate. And the thing that you can do with base rates is, let's say I have this rate schedule all set up for Albany distribution. Albany, and for whatever reason, I'm going to offer them a 10% discount on this entire rate schedule. I don't want to come back and have to reset up this entire rate schedule or reduce all my rates by 10%. So what I do is I could go in and I could create another schedule. I could call it the Albany Discount 10 rate schedule, or 10%. I would as a base rate, select that rate we just looked at, that Albany distribution rate. I'd give 10%. All the detail that's on the bottom, when I use this Albany discount 10 rate, it'll apply a 10% discount to all of those, to all of the detail on the bottom. A very way to do that. We've gone through a rate schedule. Let's take a few minutes and just take a look at a couple of specific rate schedules for very specific types of rating. Let's start with a per mile schedule. I want to concentrate on the detail now. You can see Alabama to Florida, a per mile rate of $1.65. From Albany to Chicago, a per mile rate of $1.50. Chicago, a per mile rate of $1.90. But with this particular rate schedule, if I go any place else in the U.S. to any place else in the U.S., it's $1.80 per mile. Another type of per mile rate that I see a lot of customers setting up is a per mile rate which can be used in multiple types of rate schedules, but per mile is certainly see them most. In this rate schedule, once again, we're dealing with the detail section. Any U.S. to any place in the U.S. is a per mile rate. However, going from 1 mile to 300 miles, I'm charging $1.25. 301 to 600 miles, I'm charging $1.50. From 1,000, it goes $1.75, and from 1,000 all the way up, it's $2 per mile. So make it very easy. Once again, these can be used within multiple rate schedules. I'd like to now show you an example of a per rate. You can see an example from my Midwest area to my Northeast area per hundredweight rate and all of my detail that applies there. If I want to take a look at what is my Midwest area, click on the origin, and you can see all the states that I consider to be in my Midwest area. Southeast, once again, different rates. Midwest to Southwest, different rates. North to Midwest, different rate detail over here on the right-hand side. Common way that I'm sure view rate is based on flat rates. Now we don't have to set up just a flat rate schedule. We're doing this as an example to show different types of rates. A rate schedule can be mixed up with all different types of rates that we saw in the first rate schedule we looked at today. But here, Albany, New York to Bloomfield is a flat rate of $2.40. From Houston, $16.78. From Chicago, Prophesy, $15.27. So on and so forth. They're very popular way, for those of you that do a lot of spot rating, and some of you may be doing spot today. You also may be using some rate schedules that are defined. But one suggest, if you are spot rating, that you set up what I call a flat zero charge rate. Flat zero charge rate, it will be from all states to all states. It is a flat rate, but you leave charge as zero. Why this? When you're booking a load or giving somebody a quote, you would manually select the flat zero charge rate, hit the button. The rate will come in as zero, but the miles will come in on that detail line. When you tell the amount that you're going to charge, the miles will divide to the charge, and it will show you what you're charging per mile, what the rate per mile is. It's also important to have miles within rate schedules on the booking screen, because a lot of times those miles are pulled into reports. And if you don't put the miles in, well then some of the reports that you want to run in the system are not going to come through and are not going to work. Some rates, we haven't gone into those at all. You want a driver, you can set it up for driver pay, such as 35 cents per mile for a loaded rate. Maybe they get 35 cents per mile for an empty rate. So you'd set up two different rate schedules. For paying a driver on a percentage of revenue, percentage of revenue rate, revenue select as the method instead of rate lookup. It's got percent. You'll know that when you do set up percentage of revenue rates, there is detail, because those are good from every place to every place. And you would obviously want to associate these rate schedules with a driver. So if we go to maintain drivers, and here see driver Andrews, and we can see driver Andrews' loaded rate is 35 cents per mile. His empty rate is 35 cents per mile empty rate. And there's many relationships. Set up the rate schedule once, associate it with as many drivers as you want. If driver Dondero, we can driver Dondero is paid on a percentage of revenue, 80% of revenue, the rate schedule we just looked at.
Sir?
However, yes. However, the fuel surcharge, Dondero gets 100%. Once all tying into, if you have our commissions module, one other thing that you can do as well is you can go into your users, set up your people that you're going to pay on a commission as dispatchers, even though they may or may not be dispatchers. Then you can associate a commission schedule with them and show off that they're paid on a commission. And that way you can automatically calculate commissions for your salespeople or dispatchers, whoever you may be paying a commission to. Revenue item types. All familiar with revenue item types and how they work in the system, how you have to set up specific revenue item types just to be able to use the rating period, whether you're doing manual rating or not. Certainly the system comes with a few set up. But one to be aware of is that you can set up charges that relate to those revenue or payment types. In this, we're looking at a detention charge. My for detention is $75 per hour. You can set up some customer-specific detention charge rates. In this case, you can see for Albany, I charge them $85 per hour. For Dean, $78.50, and integrated, it's $66.50. You can set up all throughout the system. You don't have to keep a separate list outside the program to track these things. What are additional ways that you can rate in our program? Well, you might be familiar with load codes. You maintain load codes. You can create billing rates with a load code, a load code, and a loaded pay rate with a load code. You have a lot more flexibility when it comes to rating. Set up equipment rates. So go into a location file, 31W installation, and equipment rate. We click on the equipment rate. Load for 31W, and I'm using a specific type of equipment, say a 53-foot dry van, maybe put a spec in there of $1.65 per mile, and that would be used. I'm setting up goods in the system. Goods are commodities. The way that you can rate in the system is you can set up a good, like 87 octane gasoline, for instance. We could set up a default rate, how much we charge for 87 octane, or we set up customer-specific rates for how much we charge. And we can have as many customers here as we want, and the system will use that rate schedule. We're going to talk in a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about the hierarchy that's used within different rating structures. Again, you could also set up a load pay rate. If I want to set up a specific amount rate schedule that I want to pay drivers on whenever they move a load for 31W, I could come down here to load pay rate, and I could select a specific rate schedule. 30 cents per mile that I want to pay the drivers off that 30 cent per mile pay rate. I could do that as well. Coming soon, we're actually working on it right now. We're going to have integration to outside or a third-party rating engine. Some of you are familiar with Southern Motor Carriers. We're currently running integration to their RateWare XL product, so that if you did add that option to your dispatch program, you could do so, and then you could access any of the rates or tariffs that you would license through Southern Motor Carriers. Let's go ahead and demonstrate how one of these automated rate schedules would work. So click Book New, Customer Albany, picking up at Albany, Dean Manufacturing. Let's just hit the Save button and let it fill in the dates automatically. And button up top, I'm going to click the Rate button. What the system just did is it went to the Customer Albany. It see if there was a rate schedule associated with that customer. If there was, it went checks to see if there were some other rate schedules that should be used, but it found that the distribution rate schedule should be used. It looked within that rate schedule for scale, and it found that from Albany, New York to Chicago, there's a flat rate in effect of $1,990. Also saw within that rate schedule that there's a scale charge that gets applied to every load of $25. And then with fuel surcharge, it saw that there's a fuel surcharge in effect this week of 30%, 35% in 1990, 690, 650, for a total charge of $2,007.50. What is it today? There's two uses for rate schedules. You can with rate schedules, customers with rate schedules, different types of rate schedules, permanent rate schedules, rate, flat rate, long ton, metric ton, per unit, per piece. Types. You can set up default charges or default types. You can set up customer specific or driver specific charges or pay types. Additional ways to rate in the system: loads, which can be used for both billing and or driver pay. Rating, use billing and or driver pay. Good rating, used based on goods. Load rate, which pays the driver based on a rate that is being charged for the load. Integration to Southern Motor Carriers RateWare XL. It's an optional. Once again, it should be available late for early part of second quarter. What is hierarchy? I went through a bunch of different rating types for billing rates. We'll load code first. Equipment from the customer file first, and then the side of the customer file, there's the bill to. So we'll look to see if there's an equipment associated with that. Specific rate schedules, once again, from the customer file first, then the bill to. A default rate, right from your preferences, file preferences. From a pay point to hierarchy, pay rates associated with the customer, load associated with the load, associated with the driver, pay rate with the driver, and the defaults. What's up for you? Setting automated rating will save you time, reduce labor costs, eliminate duplicate manual entry. Insurance charges are calculated accurately each and every time. The driver or carrier pay is calculated accurately. This time, I'd like to open it up to see if there's any questions from anybody I've covered, or perhaps you had a question with something that I didn't cover today.
Yeah. Yeah, this is B&J Trucking. Got one concerning something like a fuel surcharge rating.
Yes.
Right. Say you have a car set up under percentage for revenue. What all does it look at as far as when it calculates revenue? Calculate accessorial charges in.
It looks at the line haul only, Steve. It's a very good question.
Okay, but see, in a case where we have a customer that sometimes pays us, say they got a load in the middle of nowhere, but they want to pay us $400 to go up and get it, or a mile. Say they're $1.50 a mile, and they say, okay, yeah, we authorize this additional miles. Do we just manually recalculate and tell it, okay, now we need to add the percentage to that $400 as well?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So they're going to pay you an additional $400 fuel surcharge, or an additional $400 on the line haul?
They're going to pay us deadhead miles to go get a load that's out in the middle of nowhere. And yes, the regular rate from that point back into their facility. So it doesn't happen on every load, but when we put it in there, is there a way to say, okay, here are what we consider line haul charges, so if any of these are in there, then calculate the fuel surcharge? Or I know it's a little.
It's a good question. I believe if you added 2 lines in as loaded mile rates, if we go over to here, like if you had, like here we can see the fuel surcharge was calculated in the 1990. So
you added a second line and then
if you had a second
rated,
line with that 400,
but then if you rated, it's going to take that second line out, isn't it? And go back to what?
no.
Oh,
No.
okay.
It would, I believe, it would add in the surcharge the way you're asking for it to.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's a good question.
Question. This is Cheryl at C&J Trucking. Can I import a rate schedule into the system?
You can, and actually I meant to cover that. Go into you import data. Click create definition. You can come to rate detail, and this is where you would import your rate schedule. Now there's 2 things that you have to keep in mind before you import a rate schedule. One, you need the rate header set up in advance so that the rate detail gets mapped to that header. The other is that you need to have your areas defined in the system before you import this detail. Very good question. The other thing that you can also do on utility is you can come in here and you can have the system generate areas for you once you've set up locations. So if you come in here, click generate areas for rating, you can generate based on state, 3-digit, 5-digit, and city and state pairs. And it will just look at all the locations that you've set up.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let's just go ahead and we'll wrap up then. I would encourage if you do have questions on rate, anything that we've gone over today, you can take advantage of some services that we offer through our here at the University Prophecy Training Center, web training, training per location. We can create a customized plan that we'll go over with you and your team, just for your team. We attended webinar today, actually offering you on that training. If you sign up for training before the end of this month, receive a 10% discount on a 4-hour block of training. You'll learn how to maximize all the rating functionality in the dispatch, and you can certainly go into other areas as well and learn about those functions within the program at the same time. If there is something and you'd like to discuss it with us, please give us a call. Your name and number right on the screen there, email address, or I'm sure you all have contacts here. Please give us a call. We'd be happy to answer any questions for you, set up a customized training program for you, or just how you can get more out of reading within your Prophesy software. Once again, thank everybody for attending today, and have a great day.